together and change both of our names to United Church. And you all have got the people, we've got the building, and we'll just come together and see what God does. And they actually kept both of their senior pastors. They merged most of their staff, and that particular Sunday that we were there, both of their pastors shared a message and tag teamed the sermon. So that was definitely different. One of the guys was a little older, one of the guys was a little bit younger, closer to my age, but they did a great job of kind of tag teaming that sermon, and I guess that's what they do most every Sunday. But there was a lot of things about their building that we found were unique, and of course just watching Trey interact with the kids was amazing. He's so good with children. This was one of the interesting things that we saw, is that they had a whole wall going through one of their hallways. They had a whole wall that was dedicated to where they supported missionaries in the world. So it was really a missions wall, and you will see it says, we're at the top it says serving, and then around the corner, so that was kind of the local missions area. Then it said sharing, and then I think the other one says around the world. So the closer end of the wall was more about their local missions. The far end of the wall was all about their foreign missions. And it just was like a giant collage of pictures and things about where their missionaries that they support are serving in various places of the world, so that when you pass it, you're reminded of the mission and you're reminded to pray for and support those mission works. So we thought that was really unique and cool. Hayes Barton Baptist, we went there one Sunday. Dr. Haley was not preaching. It had some surgery, so one of their younger staff pastors was preaching, and we had communion that Sunday. And it was interesting. I think it was either 3 or 4 different churches that we went to. They were all Baptist churches, but it just so happened that we were there on their communion Sunday. When we went to First Baptist in Smithfield, where Dr. Cogdell was their interim, they were having communion that Sunday. So it was just interesting that we got caught up on our communion, good fashion. So, but as you know, Hayes Barton, if you've ever watched one of their services, very high church, formal church, but still beautiful and meaningful worship time there. LifeSpring Church in Smithfield is a church that we helped to support and to help plant. They started at Johnson Community College, JCC, in one of their auditoriums, and we helped to fund them, I think, for 3 years during their startup. And now they have their own building in Smithfield, and they are self-sustaining and financially they're where they need to be in the journey. So at that point, after 3-year commitment, then we were able to start funneling that same money that they had been receiving toward the Point Church over here in Western Harnett. That is a church plant here in the Little River Association. But the guy in the Carolina blue shirt, he actually went to state, but he's wearing a Carolina blue shirt. I don't know how that happened, is Mark Stevens. Melissa and I went to high school with Mark, and Mark actually preached this Sunday. Mark and then Dylan Shute, they co-pastor this church together. Dylan and his wife Grace actually got married in our sanctuary here at Neals Creek because Grace and her family, I think, her parents live over at Neals Creek Farms. But it was great catching up with them and just seeing what God is doing in that church that we help to support and to plant. And Mark, when we went to high school, I mean, he was just this kind of redneck guy, I mean, I didn't even know if he'd go to college. He preached a dynamic sermon. Well, Melissa and I were both blown away just to see what God has done in his life. If you'd have told me in high school that dude would have been up preaching like he was, I'd have said no way. But I'm telling you, he preached an awesome sermon, and it was really good. Well, yeah, because I was voted most likely to succeed in my high school class. So, I mean, there's no question. It was just a matter of what I was going to do. But no, you never know. That is funny, Irma. The people that you go to high school with sometimes really surprise you. The ones that you think are going to succeed sometimes don't, and sometimes it's the other way around. But I've learned that God can do anything with anybody. That's the lesson in that. They had a really neat room in their building called a prayer and care room, where they just had some chairs in there. And, I thought, of course, there's umpteen dozen uses and spaces in churches, and it never seems like we have enough space to do all that we want to do. But sometimes it is really nice to have a prayer room in a church, or a room where if someone is here and they're especially going through some emotional things, or maybe they're just having just going through a time and they need someone to kind of go in and counsel with them and pray with them. That's a really nice space to have. Again, it was not a great big room, but it was a nice thing. And something that there may have been at other churches, but we did not notice it if it was at other churches that we went to. Another thing we liked about Smithfield is how they really used the space very well. So even on a wall there, that's their mission statement: live for God, love all people, and lead others to do the same. And so they had that mission statement up on the wall where you could see it very prominently in their kind of gathering area right outside of the sanctuary. Another thing that we saw, and we saw this at numerous churches, and it's something that we do want to bring here and to do here, are these large pictures that they had basically blown up and put on the walls in common areas and kind of hallways where you would be walking. So the one there on the left is Pastor Mark, after he's baptized this guy and giving him a big hug. And then the picture on the right is them serving, packing meals for people, kind of like we do with Buddy Backpack. And so, just shows and showcases kind of what the church does. Pictures, the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so especially for someone who's new to the church or visiting, when they see those pictures, it tells a story of what the church is about. And so, there was pictures of youth when they were on mission trip together, or pictures of, just anything really that the church was doing that was positive. And so we noticed that at several churches, and how that really gave us as outsiders coming in a quick snapshot of who they were and helped to tell their story. So that's something that we want to do here, especially because we have such awesome church photographers, and Miss Betty, and now Sam is helping out with that, and we've just got a lot of good pictures that would be perfect to put in some hallways and common areas of our educational building, and even in here. So another initiative that I helped work with, and I'm not going to, there's a lot I could say about this, but I won't say much about it here tonight, is Anger Hope. And that is a cooperative effort of our church, Anger Baptist, Anthem Church, and Kennebec Baptist, and the Little River, I'm about to sneeze, I'm trying to hold it in, the Little River Association. And what it is we are joining together to do a website that will feature content from all of our churches and all four pastors, Mark Howard, Thomas Allen, Rick Gutierrez, and myself, talking about topics that people deal with, from family issues to addiction to marriage, finances. There's 5 or 6 main topics that we cover in that. And then we're going to put it out, and we'll have a big promotional campaign. You can see the logo there, Anger Hope. Hope is one click away. And we hope that'll be a great tool to reach people that may never set foot in our church for a Sunday morning church service, but need to hear the good news of the Bible and the good news of the gospel. So we worked on that a good bit. We've been filming content on that, and so I helped them with that. And that's been just a really neat thing to see our churches cooperating in that effort to reach our community in a way that we otherwise would not be able to. We had thought about maybe having a big rally and having a revival speaker come in, and that would be a great thing, but it would just be for 3 or 4 nights if we were to do that. We thought about doing a mailer, but you spend that money to do the mailer, and then it's a one-time thing, and they either act on it or they throw it in the trash, and that money is gone. But a website, the money we'll put toward that, and the efforts toward that, once that's up 24/7. I mean, people can access that at any time, anywhere, and so we believe it's going to be a really powerful thing, in the COVID era, virtual church and technology like that is what a lot of people are looking for. I don't believe that's a substitute for coming to church in person, but a lot of people have started utilizing that now, and so we're hoping that there'll be a lot of good resources on that. And if someone, comes and says, comes to me or to any of these pastors and needs a help with a life issue, we've then got a resource that we can say, why don't you go and check out some of these videos on Andrew Hope dealing with finances. I think they'll really help you. Or watch some of these videos dealing with marriage. And they're all short. They're all 3 to 5 minute videos. So it's not like we're preaching a whole sermon. We're trying to give just the most important nuggets on whatever topic we are talking about. But so spent some time doing that, and that was a very rewarding thing. We were able to go to the mountains on vacation with my family. And we hit it just right, just the right time for the leaves. They were beautiful. The trees were full. The colors were full. And so it was just, wonderful weather. We spent some time at the Cove, Billy Graham's Cove. So if you know much about Billy Graham's ministry, you know that he and his wife, Ruth, designed the Cove. And then they've got the Billy Graham Library that's in Charlotte. But the Cove is there in Asheville, and just a beautiful place. They have a retreat center. This is the chapel, and so we went and toured the chapel, and there was just a lot of really neat things in there. I can't remember all of the details, but like all of those pews were brought from a church in England. The pulpit was brought from a church in England. A lot of those things Miss Ruth Graham designed herself. There was a prayer garden there that she designed and picked all the flowers for, and there was a prayer room up in the top of that steeple of that chapel. You go up on the 3rd level, and there's a prayer room, and that was the verse that was on the wall: be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God that passes all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. In the center of that prayer room, it was kind of like an octagon almost, prayer kneeling bench where you could kneel all the way around it, and in the very center was a globe that had a light. It was illuminated, and so it was like, praying. You could pray for all nations of the world. But we spent a good bit of time, Melissa and I, in there praying for a lot of different things, and that was just a rich experience where we felt very close to God. One of the really neat things was that I got to, they had on the 2nd floor a little history museum of Billy Graham's crusades, and that is one of his traveling pulpits. But if you look really closely down at the very bottom, so you see you've got the sides on the pulpit, you can see where the indentations of where his hands were in that leather, where he held on to the pulpit. And then they had some of his sermon manuscripts up there. And then the really thing that was hilarious to me was you see that button there that's got the green and the red and the blue light. The green light is 5 minutes. The amber light in the middle is 2 minutes, and then the blue light means sit down and shut up. And so I thought, if the legendary Billy Graham had to have, somebody to tell him when to close it, I said, I guess all preachers struggle with preaching too long. But many of his crusades, once they really got to be big time, were televised events, and so they did have to keep it within a certain time. But a beautiful chapel there. On my right is my mom. She got to play the piano, and we sang some hymns there. So just a really neat special event. We did get to go see the Biltmore for Christmas. They had just decorated it for Christmas, so we got to take the tour of the Biltmore, and that was good. Trinity Baptist Church, the second Trinity Baptist that we went to in Asheville, North Carolina. We had a great experience there, and a great worship service there. That church was founded, I don't know if it was founded, but a longtime pastor there for decades, Ralph Sexton, and just a few weeks ago he handed over the reins, so to speak, to his grandson. Winston Parrish was the next pastor that they called. Pastor Ralph announced his retirement back earlier in the year, and they started their search process and ended up calling his grandson Winston there. So they had kind of a special retirement service and then kind of ordination installation service for Winston there a few weeks ago. So we got to hear him preach, and it was it was a great service. The last church that we went to during sabbatical was an African-American church in Garner, Springfield Baptist Church, and had a great worship experience with them, very, very warmly received. And they just built a family life center that makes ours dwarf in comparison, but theirs had a little bit bigger price tag. But it was amazing to hear the story. I don't have time to tell you all of the stories behind that, and we took a lot of pictures. That is the main area, the gymnasium area. At that end is a stage that is humongous. I mean, that picture does not do it justice. I think you could have a full Broadway show on that stage. It's so big. Their kitchen was pretty big, but I'd say ours would give it a run for its money. Now, they had a nice kitchen there, and it was 2 stories, so the picture that I took was from the track that went around the top there, where they had a full walking track all the way around, and then on the outside, both on the left and the right and both ends, they had all kinds of classrooms. So they had several youth rooms, they had several senior adults rooms, they had a whole wing of it for counseling, just to have people come in a couple days a week that would provide counseling services to their congregation and the community. And then there was a whole wing where they had brand new staff offices. And I'll have to confess that Miss Melissa did do a little bit of coveting while there, because they had a 2-car garage for the pastor and his wife to pull into that led directly to his office. I said, that's a pastor that knows how to get out of Dodge when the heat is on. He's got he can retreat to his garage and get out of town. So, okay. So any questions before I get into some of these vision things? Let me see how I'm doing on my time. Pretty good. What are any questions on that, on the slideshow or anything that we did while we were on sabbatical? I will say that the first 2 weeks was really an adjustment period, and then it was kind of like a person when they first go on retirement. You don't know what to do for a while, what to do with yourself. The kind of the middle part was the time that I experienced the greatest work and move of God in my life, and then toward the last, I'd say 3.5 weeks, I was really ready to come back and to be back. And when I came back and did the funeral for Miss Judy Adams, I was like, oh, I just wish I could stay. You know, I wish I could just come on back, because it was so good to see everybody. But I think even then God used that to to prepare my heart to come back and to build that desire and that hunger and that love for the people. You know, the old saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and we definitely experienced that. And I'm serious when I say, as I put in my newsletter, that every week, when we went to church somewhere else, we had some good experiences. We had some that were not as good, but every week, Melissa and I would just come away with, gosh, we sure miss our church family at Neals Creek. There's nothing like the people at Neals Creek. And so we were very ready to come back. And so that was an answer to prayer in and of itself, that I wanted God to reconfirm, so to speak, to me that my life's calling is to be a pastor, and that this is the place that He continues to want me to be. Because you haven't been here 10 years, the last thing that I want to do is stand in God's way of what He would have for this place. And if it was somebody else, then I wanted to get out of the way so that God could do His thing. But like it or not, you stuck with me, because God said this is it, at least for the time being. And I just want to thank you all again just for the blessing of sabbatical. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. I don't know if at some point off in the future, if we were to do this thing again, I don't know if I would do quite 13 weeks, might do 8 weeks, I don't know. But again, I think God moved in my life at various points all along that journey. And again, just can't thank you all enough. I hope you can sense that I'm refreshed, that I'm renewed, and that I'm ready to go. Put the foot on the gas, no brakes. So let's go forward. Just a few key commitments that, and there's a lot more that I'll say about this at the first of next year. I'm going to do a sermon series early in 2022 called Vision Values, where I'm going to get into some of these things in more detail. But just some key commitments that I felt like as we visited these other churches, as we prayed about what God would have for Neals Creek. these were some of the things that God really laid on my heart. So the first is that we would be a soul-winning church, that we would be intentional about reaching lost people, leading them to Christ, helping disciple them into spiritual maturity and Christ-likeness. You know, every church has the calling of the Great Commission. Every New Testament church has that calling to reach people with the gospel. You know, one unique, and then every church has kind of a unique, what I would say, contextual calling from God. So the Cowboy Church in Andrew, their unique calling is to reach people that go to rodeos. Okay, there are motorcycle biker churches. They have a unique contextual calling. The calling for our youth group is a unique contextual calling in what they do. One of the unique things that God, I think, has done here in our church, is, at least since I've been here, is that our church has been a home for people who, for whatever reason, were unhappy at their church, or maybe had left their church for a season, and they just wanted a good, Bible-based, healthy church to connect to. Maybe they had been hurt somewhere else, just all kinds of different stories and reasons behind that. And at first, I struggled with that a little bit, and I said, you know, God, are we robbing other churches of their sheep? Are we stealing people away? And God began to show me, no, Chris, that these are people that if it were not for Neal's Creek being here in these people's lives in the right place in the right time, they might would have never gone to church anywhere else. They could have very well drifted away from church. And so Neal's Creek has been used as a place for them to have a church home, to grow, to reconnect, to recommit, and to serve the Lord. So I'm happy about that. And I would say of the 100+ people that have joined our church in the last 8 to 10 years, a lot of them have been folks that have transferred their membership and come from some other local church in our community. But I want us to balance that out and not just depend on that for our growth, but to be intentional about winning souls for Christ. Because I think that's at the root of it all. And I think as you all read Flickering Lamps, I hope that you saw that message too, about knowing the mission and keeping the mission of the church front and center. The second is celebratory worship, that we would have an atmosphere of worship where people participate, where they encounter God, where they leave with a stronger faith and a greater victory for living. We never know what people are carrying when they come in those doors on Sunday morning. They could have been through hell and high water and back. And so we have about an hour-ish, sometimes we go longer than that, but we have a time to make an impact for Christ. And so again, we saw when we were on this sabbatical journey, different churches that we went to, it was evident right from the time you went in the front door. You felt the presence of God. You felt the activity of God. It was a place that was alive, and there was celebratory worship. And I'm not talking about smoke screens and guitars. I'm talking about just the true authenticity of that place. And there was other places that we went, it was dead as a doornail. And I kept looking at my watch saying, when is this going to be over? And if I'm feeling that way as a pastor and a devoted Christian, think of how lost people would be feeling in that kind of situation who are trying out church for the first time. So celebratory worship, I think you have seen that in the last few Sundays. We have tried to make it a celebration when we are here, try to make it a time where we truly are worshiping God from a real and authentic place, and where we leave with a sense of victory for living. The next thing is that we would continue to be a family church, where we're a fellowship of believers who truly act as a family. And I think an area where we can continue to grow is multi-ethnic, having multi-racial family and multi-generational, where we care about the children, the youth, the college students, the young adults, the senior adults, and where we value ministry to all of those groups, and where families can come and they can encounter a place where the whole family is welcome and is engaged in their worship and service. excellent staff. I want to continue to raise the bar, that we would have the very best staff here that God can possibly send us, and that we hold them to a standard of excellence. You all saw that in our staff while I was gone. I think you saw them step up to the plate. I think you saw them mature and saw what a gift they are to our church, and we want to be good to them. If we be good to them, I guarantee they will be good back to us. Want to be a welcoming and a good first impression church. And there are some things that we do with that already that are really good. There's some things that we can do to improve on that I think we have learned in this journey. And again, you'll be hearing a little bit more about that next year. But I think that's something that you cannot do too much in. I think you can always be making strides and improvement on being a welcoming church, because in many ways you only get, the old saying goes, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And then lastly, that we would be a community-oriented church, where we would be a church that is active in our community. The community knows who we are, what we are about, and that we are not just a religious country club, but that we are doing stuff in our community. Everything from Buddy Backpack to the prayer walks, to the things that we can do partnering with our schools, the tutoring program. All of those things help send the message, a strong message, that we're a church that loves our community, that we're for our community. We want to be present in our community, and we believe that our community is the mission field that God has for us. And again, I hope that was another theme that you got out of your reading and study of Flickering Lamps. One thing that we are going to be starting next year is on 5th Sundays, we're going to have a prayer breakfast right in here. And we're going to ask you all to bring a dish and do a covered dish, but do it for breakfast. Do covered dish prayer breakfast. And we're going to do that on 5th Sundays, on January the 30th, on May the 29th, and again on October the 30th. And we're going to have a particular theme for each one of those, and that is going to be in lieu of Sunday school on those days. So on January 30th, we're going to talk about using a prayer journal. That's one thing that Melissa and I started doing over Sabbatical, is we started keeping a prayer journal every day, and it's been a great, I think, enhancement to our prayer life. On the 29th, we're going to invite military folks, first responders to come, and we're going to have a time where we just show them appreciation and where we pray for them. That's going to be kind of our emphasis there. And then on October 30th, it's going to be on good teachers like you, Miss Landis, and missionaries, and that'll be our focus for the prayer breakfast then. So our timeline is we want to be here at 9 o'clock. We're going to eat breakfast until about 9:40, and then from 10:45 to 10:30 will be our program. So again, in lieu of Sunday school, we'll kind of have one big Sunday school class on those 3 5th Sundays. Also on the 5th Sundays, when we go into the sanctuary for our morning worship time, we're going to have a prayer and praise service on the 5th Sunday. So that means that we are going to be kind of emphasizing prayer. We're going to have time for people who need prayer for particular things to be prayed for, and where we just spend a little bit more time. It's going to be a little bit more of a musical service. So our choir, our handbells, they have so many different things. Our musicians, you know how gifted we are, and many times we don't get to showcase them as much as we would like to. So 5th Sundays are going to be a prayer and praise service, and I'm excited about that. It'll be something a little bit different, just a change of pace on those Sundays. All right, any questions on any of that I have shared? Okay. We tried as much as we could to act like we were just the average Joe and Jane. Sometimes they still got it out of us that we were a pastor, but most of the time we really truly wanted to act as though we were guests to get the full first impression visit. So we didn't tell any stories or any fibs, but we also didn't, put it out there that I'm pastor of Neals Creek Baptist Church or anything like that. But yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, this time I'm going to turn it over to Melissa. She's got a few things to share.
Okay, so the last slide for the sabbatical, and then he'll pull up my slide about my business, is something that I've been feeling led to do for quite a while now is to enhance and grow our women's ministry. And, before, when I was working at CVS, I worked every other weekend and every other Wednesday night. So I never felt like I had the time, even if I wanted to start something or teach, something on a Wednesday night, it would never be consistent. It would be, every other week. So that's one of the greatest blessings from leaving CVS, among many other things. And it was something that I had shared with Beth Fortner. Chris and I went to their house for dinner back in August, right before we went on sabbatical, because they wanted to join the church. And it was something that she shared with me, and I was like, great, let's work together. But I'm about to go on sabbatical, so see you when I come back. So we got together last week, and we sort of ironed out the details of when and where and what we're going to do. So we talked about everything, but we felt the best thing, right now is just to do it on Wednesday nights. It'll be from 6 to 7, just like the regular Bible study. And we'll be upstairs in room 205. And something that when we were at the pastor and wives retreat, the women separated the first evening from the husbands, and we did something together. And I'm going to bring that to our Bible study. And I won't share what it is, because I want it to be a surprise, and I want you to come on Wednesday nights and see what it is. But it won't be, we're not studying like a Priscilla Shire's book or, a particular book of the Bible, but you'll just have to come and see what we have planned. But if you like to be crafty, we have something for you. If you like to write and journal, we've got something for you too. So it'll be a mix of things each evening. It'll be very interactive. So I hope you can come. We really want to strengthen our women's ministry and make it the best that it can be, because being a woman, working wife, a working mom, caring for your children, your husband, maybe your parents, it's a lot. It can be a lot. And a lot of times, I know when I was working at CVS that my relationship with God was always on the back burner. It's just sort of an afterthought. And I've tried to really be more intentional about, like he said, the prayer journal, reading my Bible, trying to do better. And I just want us to, do whatever we can to make our women here stronger. And then once we get to the place where we're strong together with God, we want to be able to go out and reach others as well. So we'll figure all that out together. Beth and I are really excited, so I hope you all come on Wednesday nights. And that starts in January. Yeah. We had thought, what if we meet on another weeknight, but then which night would we do? And then what do you do with the children? And, Sunday nights, then you're trying to get ready for bed and homework. And so we just picked this. So we'll see how it goes. And if, there's another night that maybe we should do it, then, we'll see. But this is just what we felt like, just to start with, to see how it goes. And then we'll go from there to see if we need to do anything different. So mine is the next tab. All right, so I've got, 7 minutes? I'll try to go through this really quickly, sort of give you the 30,000-foot view of what I'm doing. Try not to get, too technical and bogged down with the science, because I don't want to overwhelm you. So my company is Tar Heel Pgx Consulting. And Pgx is short for pharmacogenomics. So if you ever see RX, you think prescription, pharmacy, drugs. If you see Pgx, it's short for pharmacogenomics. And pharmacogenomics is the study of how a person's genetics affects their response to drugs. So the pharma being the drugs, genomics being the genes. So there's a lot of benefits to Pgx. And one of them is that it helps us, once we get your results, to tailor your treatment to you specifically. So not just generically picking something, it's what do you need that would be best for you. And it can help us to know what we should give you because it will possibly work for you, but we will also know what to stay away from so that it doesn't harm you. And one of my favorite things about PGX is it's going to help eliminate a lot of the trial and error approach that is used in prescribing. If you've ever been to the doctor, they do your exam, blood work, vitals. What are your symptoms? Okay, here's your diagnosis. Here's your prescription for something. Go to the pharmacy. You go to the pharmacy. What do you do when you get to the pharmacy? Wait. You wait in line. You wait in the drive-thru. You get your prescription. You take your medicine. And you go home, you take it and hope that it works, right? And what happens when it doesn't? You go back to the doctor and you wait at the doctor, and then you go back to the pharmacy and you wait some more. So with PGX, we can eliminate a lot of that because we can know what you should be on to start with. So there's several different drug classes that we have a lot of evidence for there being an association between your gene, whatever the results are, and a particular drug. So this isn't all-inclusive. This is the categories where we have the most evidence. So cardiovascular, so blood pressure, high cholesterol meds, psychiatry, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, pain, things like codeine, tramadol, hydrocodone, neurology, anti-seizure meds. This sort of really all started with oncology or the cancer meds, and so we have a lot of information with that. And then the gastroenterology, so medicines for heartburn and nausea. And all the kids at St. Jude's actually get a Pgx test when they start so that the doctors know right from the beginning which medicines they should and should not be on. So this is a little video that I found that I think will help better explain it, so you don't have to hear my voice anymore. So he's going to get that to come up. But this field of study has been around for decades, but just in the last few years has become more mainstream, using in the general public.
I had motion sickness, which I'd never had in my life. Your skin it's all scaly and your whole body is just a mess. And after 5 days in that Naples hospital, they ran everything that they could on me and said, "We have given up. You need to go back to Mayo where all your records are."
Doctors were thinking of medication sensitivity. And one of the things that they wanted to find out was that, could it be that she's not metabolizing her medications appropriately? So again, back then, the only test that was offered for this patient was CYP2D6.
Everybody basically has their own genetic code. This is why people have different eye color or different hair color. You can also have a difference in response to drugs because of this genetic code. The difference in response you might have, you've seen that some people respond to drugs and some people don't respond to drugs. Also, some people have different side effects to drugs where others don't. Sometimes this can be predicted by genetics.
After I was tested, I wrote a letter to all my family and all those in my gene pool. Out of that grouping now, 19 more have been tested and positive for the 2D6.
Being a tight family, my oldest sister, Karen, really does a lot of work on this and has brought a lot of stuff to light for our family and our siblings.
Their research helped me. I'm still alive. You can see I'm doing better than I was when I was 50. So I'm, just happy.
It works so well. I actually had to be on the lowest dose and then reduced to half a tablet. And I blood pressure's been phenomenal since.
If everybody was tested, my God, you'd know these drugs will not work for you. Why waste the time and the effort and the money? And the people would feel better. They'd get some results.
"23 other people's lives have been affected by this one thing that Mayo has done. And that's just one. I cannot imagine, if you really dug into it, how many would have been affected. What a gift."
Okay. So I hope you saw that, just you getting your test is not just for you. It can be for your whole family as well. As you know, your DNA gets passed from generation to generation. So it's not always just for you. It can be for your whole family as well. All right. So the process of, if you want to work with me for my business, first you got to sign up. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. I have a website, tarhillpgxconsulting.com. I have a Tar Heel Facebook page, a Tar Heel Pgx Instagram page, and I have business cards. On the back of the business card is a little QR code, and if you're not familiar with how to use one of those, you just take your phone like you're going to take a picture of the QR code, and once it hovers over it, something will come up. You can click on that, and it'll take you right to the screen. Can you click on that so they'll see what it looks like? So you'll put in your first name, your last name, your phone number, and email, and then you'll answer yes or no and submit it. So you have to start here. This is where you get started in the funnel of the process. Once you fill that out, you'll get an email based on what your answer to the question was. It will have different information, but there'll be a link to make your appointment. When you make your appointment, you'll get 2 separate emails after you pick your date and time. One is your medical form, so it'll have, you need to put in your current meds, past meds, anything that you take over the counter, past surgeries, family history, allergies, all sorts of things. I need to know a lot about you to be able to help you effectively. And then you'll get a second email with a consent form that you have to sign and acknowledge that you received the HIPAA Privacy Act forms. When you come to the initial consultation, it's free. It lasts about 15 minutes, and it's all over Zoom. All my consultations are on Zoom, so you never have to leave your home, and you don't have to go to another doctor's office. Save your gas, save your time. You can come in your pajamas. I don't care. Just come to your appointment, and then we'll review the form that you filled out just to make sure everything is correct. I'll go over the next steps with you on getting a test, and if you want a test, you have to first pay a $50 deposit. That money is in no way paying for the lab test. There may not even be a cost for the test. It just depends. Once you pay that deposit, I will send your information to the lab. Zoom is just a video conferencing tool. So the lab test is a cheek swab, so it's not a blood sample. It's something that you can do. We actually got one in the mail today for Deuce, so even he is going to get his cheek swabbed. It's really easy. Maybe takes about 30 seconds. And the cost for the test will depend on the lab, because different labs test for a different number of genes. And I always submit your insurance. Sometimes it's covered, sometimes it's not covered, and you have to pay the full price, or it may just be a short, amount that you have to pay. So I have no way of knowing what your cost will be. I can tell you what the cash price is, but it could be free. If you do have the Medicare Part B, the red, white, and blue card, and you qualify, most people do, the lab test is free. So free consultation, free lab test. All you have to pay is for my consultation to actually review the results and go over them with you. Once the results come in, I'll send you an email saying, hey, I got your results. You'll pay the remainder of the consultation fee, which is $150, and you'll make your appointment. So at the appointment, again, over Zoom. This one will be at least 30 minutes, could be more, could be less, depending on what your results are, how many, atypical results you have, how many drugs you're on. It just varies, but please allow at least 30 minutes. So I'm doing a giveaway for a free consultation, so that's a $200 value. If you are on Facebook or on Instagram, I posted this yesterday, so if you like the post, share the post, and if you're following us on either one of those, you have until midnight tonight to do those things, and you will be entered to win a free consultation. Now, let's say you don't take any medicines. You can still get a Pgx test, but maybe you're not ready to do it right now. That's fine. Like, share, and follow us. And if you win and you want to give it to somebody else, that's fine too. But that ends at midnight tonight. So my hope for the future, and all of those of us who are in the world of Pgx, is, I don't know if you can see the woman going up to the pharmacy counter saying, here's my DNA sequence. So when you go to the pharmacy, you go to the doctor, you give them your medicines, you give them your allergies, you give them your family history. Well, we want you to give them this too eventually, because your medicines, your DNA affects how you absorb the medicines, break them down, get them through your body, how they get to the organ or the cell or wherever they need to go. Your genetics determine all of that. So why not get you on the right medicine to start with? Why put you on stuff that A, was never going to be beneficial to you, or B, could potentially cause you harm, toxicity, overdose, put you in the hospital. Now you've got more time, more cost. Is that it? Oh, questions. I know that was really fast, but I know you're ready to eat breakfast, so. It depends. Okay. Miss Linda asked, are the doctors receptive to what you're doing? I'm going to answer that honestly in that, so I launched my business on September 20th, so not even been 3 months yet. I've had 6 initial consultations, no 7. Just had one last week, my first one since October. I've had one person, they got the test the very first week, and they still haven't done the test. That's another story. So I've completed 4 other people's tests, and then I have another one pending. So the results that I've received for the other 4 people, I've given the doctors the information, sent it to them. None of them have come back and said, what are you doing? Who are you? That has not happened yet. Now I have friends who are doing the same thing that I'm doing all over this country. And, some doctors have been very receptive to it and are like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful, thank you. I need you to work with my other patients. But there have also been some doctors who are like, who are you to tell me what to do? So that is where you as the patient and me as the pharmacist have to come in, and we have to advocate for you. We have the information. If you present the information to the doctor and they give you something that could be harmful to you, that puts them at liability because they have this information. It's not made up. It's all founded with randomized controlled trials or meta-analysis where we have the evidence that shows there is an association. So we're not just making this stuff up as we go. There is evidence for this. So it's been mixed. I haven't personally had anyone that needed a change in their medicines currently based on their results. Now, if they did, and I made those recommendations, we'll just have to see, what the doctor says. We have found that older physicians that have been practicing for quite a while are less receptive to what us as pharmacists are doing because they don't understand. We have a doctorate too. We went to school for 4 years. Some of us did residencies. I have a certificate in pharmacogenomics. I didn't have to get that because I have the knowledge to do what I'm doing, but I'm an overachiever, so I went and got it anyway, just so I'd have all the knowledge I possibly could. I listen to webinars every week. I bought a textbook off of Amazon. I read that. I just want to know as much as I possibly can. So the older doctors are less receptive. They don't understand it. The younger doctors are, because when they went through their residency training, pharmacists were part of the care team that rounded with them, like in the hospital. So they know what we are capable of. They know our knowledge. So they're more receptive to it. So it just varies. It's been around for probably 20 or 30 years. The price of the Pgx test used to be tens of thousands of dollars, and now they're just hundreds of dollars. But I would say what I'm doing just in the last few years. Places like UNC, Mayo Clinic, where that woman went, St. Jude's, they've been using it for quite a while. But as far as using it in the public and putting it in your hands, just in the last few years. What else? This is terrifying enough to have you all staring at me. I don't think so. Maybe one day. I know, and it's still terrifying. I'm sweating, so I don't like everybody looking at me. That's why I like the one-on-one, the Zoom, that I like. And I've actually been, thank you. Yeah. So a lot of doors have opened for me since I went public with my business. I participated in some things at Campbell. I'm going to have an intern starting in January working with me. I have pharmacy students asking to shadow me. And I'm like, no, you don't want to do that. But anyways, I will have to figure that out. That is a goal of mine, is to be a preceptor, just because I had good ones when I was in school, and I also had ones that were really bad. So I don't really know how that would work out. You know, that's one of the benefits of what I'm doing, is I get to work from home and set my own schedule. And I'll actually be teaching a lecture to the second-year pharmacy students in March. Yeah, and they're going to be like stacked up, and they're all going to be staring at me. And so y'all pray for me. Start now. Yeah, I won't have to wear a sleeveless and just be like, oh my gosh. So anyway, so pray for me. What other questions? Okay. So I have a bunch of material up here. Everything that I have is from the labs that I work with. So I've partnered with 3 labs. The one I use the most is 1Ohm. And the cash price for them, if your insurance doesn't cover it or you don't have insurance, is $249. And they test 27 different genes. And then I have Tempus. They do a whole exome sequencing, but their cash price is $299. And then this middle lab is Access DX. Their cash price right now is $249, but they only test 17 genes. But come January, sometime in January, I don't have an exact date, they're going to be testing 38 genes. So I'm not using them right now just because I don't want to have you pay for a test potentially for 17 genes if in a month or so from now we'll have 38 genes on their panel. In the folder is like all of this stuff. And I have business cards you can take. There's a business card in the folder. Take as much as you want. If it runs out, I'll call the labs. They'll send me more. And then everything up here has my sticker on the back. It has my phone number, my email, and my website. So if you have any other questions and you're ready to eat, you can come talk to me afterwards. All right. Is that it? Yeah. Oh, I was like, where is that coming from? Okay. If you want to purchase a gift certificate for a family member, if you know a parent, neighbor, somebody that really needs this test, but maybe they can't afford my consultation fee, you want to give them that for Christmas, let me know as well. I will say, if you make your initial consultation, I'm glad I didn't forget this, now before the end of the year, you will get the $200 consultation fee. As of January 1st, it's going up to $300. I don't really need to explain that, but I will. Just I spend hours on every single person, not just for reviewing their results, but for the initial consultation. You know, I look at every single medicine you're taking. I run reports, not just for are there interactions with your genes, but are there drug-drug interactions, so that when you come to the consultation, you know right from the start, yes, a Pgx test, you definitely need one. You got to have one, you know, because you're on so many medicines, or you're on medicine that has good data, or no, we don't have any evidence, but you can still get one, because you never know what in the future you may be diagnosed with. It could be a high blood pressure. You could get in, a car accident, and you need a pain medicine. Well, which pain medicine? Because we don't want to give you one that doesn't work, and then you're taking more pain medicine and it's not working. I have a YouTube channel as well. I've recorded 4 videos of just myself reviewing my results, and I think there's 4, and I talk about my results and sort of what they mean, like for cholesterol medicine and another gene with tramadol for pain. And then I also have an interview that I did with my grandma. As you know, she was diagnosed with cancer. She's having surgery in 2 weeks. When we did the test, it was just, she's on 8 different medicines. This was a complimentary from one of the labs. Here, Grandma, let's test you, see what you got, see if you're the reason I have some of my bad genes, and she is. But then, a few weeks later, she was diagnosed with cancer. She takes her report to the doctor, and lo and behold, he's like, oh, wow, I didn't know about this. He made a copy. So, when she's going to have a nausea med, she's going to have something for pain. But now he knows which one to give her and which one to stay away for. So you never know what you're going to have happen in the future. And your DNA doesn't change, so get it done. All right.
And there's a pill for that, right, Miss Carol? Yeah. So Melissa's goal really in this is to help people. I mean, that's the number one goal. That's what she's doing for a living now, but we're not in it to get rich. You're not going to get rich at $200 or $300 per person consultation fee, but we truly want to help people. And there's enough of a cynic in me to say that, big pharma, big drug companies don't want medicines to work too well, and they've got the doctors, in their back pocket. But I think that this is a breakthrough technology. Think about people that are on various types of mental health medications that sometimes it is very much trial and error, and they may have to be on a medication for a couple of months to even see if it works. Think about people that are taking chemotherapy that can know from the beginning what type of chemo is going to work better for their body and their genetic makeup than having to go through horrible chemo and the side effects that's really not doing them any good. So I think it's a breakthrough thing, and excited that Melissa had the faith to launch into this and step forward, and God's been faithful to provide for us. And the main thing is I feel like I've got my wife back after years of CVS just draining her, not trying to badmouth them, but yeah, it was the right time. And it was the right time to make that transition, and God just aligned it so that could happen over Sabbatical. And again, we're grateful to our church family for having that time. So I'm going to bless our food, and then, yes, sir, we're ready, Tim. We're ready. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time here tonight. Thank you for our church family. Thank you for all that you're doing in and through this family of faith. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit of what you've done in our life, God, over the last few months. Thank you for the rest. Thank you for the revival that we've experienced and for the exciting new things that you have done during this sabbatical time. Lord, thank you for a church family that had the faith in this process and the faith in you. And thank you for all the leaders and everyone who stepped up and just kept things going so strong here at Neals Creek, so I'd have a good return when I came back. Lord, we thank you for our Baptist men and this food that we'll share tonight. Lord, bless this meal to nourish and strengthen us. Lord, may we have a sweet time of fellowship, and may you see us home safely tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.